NSA, we had to give it a name because the NSA didn't really want us to let people know that we were, building this equipment just for them. But it wasn't nothing secret. It wasn't. It's just that they preferred that we didn't refer to them as CIA or NSA. Then when they had the NRO, they were really bad because you couldn't even say NRO. And we did a lot of work for them too. But they were my customer.
So they were big into DMODs, I assume, by saying you were your customer?
Yes, they were big into DMODs, 9488 and 9480, and were done just for them. Again, did those back in the middle 80s. But they would write up a spec, and they had, a lot of different requirements, and they were very special DMODs. They had all kinds of wings on them because of the system that they used them in, which is classified. I won't talk about it, but it was a very demanding system. And it took a long time to get into that. They previously had been buying things like 9477s and things like that, and GMS 105s, and just using them. And but they really wanted to have something done just for them. So they finally got me cleared to get into their facility and sit down and create a spec for the DMOD that they really wanted, and then we cranked it out for them.
So that was another good seller?
Only to them.
No, I mean in terms of quantities.
No, it actually didn't turn out to be. In dollars it wasn't bad because they were horribly expensive, But in gross numbers they weren't high. We probably only did 30, 35 units. But they were all over 100K a piece, and they paid for the engineering because, so we made money on it. But one of the things that we found out, and I think that a lot of people find out, that once you start doing things for a particular customer, they also start buying your off-the-shelf equipment too. And so they become a good customer. So even though it isn't directly related to the special product you did for them, just the relationship, they get a little closer to you, and they're in your plant, and you have a chance to show them some of the other receivers and DMODs and signal monitors, and I say, hey, we could use those, and so and so. So you end up, developing a business with them.
Bob Watson told me that when the 9472 was developed, the first batch that was sold were a failure, and Peter ended up recalling all of them.
Right. He replaced them all. That's Peter's way of doing it. He was a very honest man. He figured that it was our mistake as much as theirs because we didn't find out what the application was. And that's one thing that was always difficult. Watson did the 94, 71, 72, and he did what he thought they wanted. But when they got it, it wasn't what they wanted. So they said, hey, what can we do about this? We don't have any more money to buy anymore. That was our budget. And so Peter says, well, give us a little time and we'll give you exactly what you need. But this time let's sit down and find out what it is you need so we don't do it again.
And the result was a 9471 VFT?
I'm confused.
Well, I heard the 9471 replaced the VFT, replaced the 9472 that didn't work.
Yeah, it was intended to replace. Yeah, that's right, it did. But there again, even though I was the DMOD man, Watson did that. He did it exclusively. And in fact, Watson never ever, in all of 30 years I was associated, never worked for me. And, of course, a lot of people say he never worked for anybody except himself. He was sort of independent. But, yeah, he did those D-mods. They were all the FSK D-mods, a little, narrow frequency shift, teletype, multiplex teletype.
Well, Bob is fairly realistic about himself. He told me that one of the managers for him said he was doing a pretty good job of managing him, and another guy turned and said to him that anybody who says they can manage Bob Watson is lying about other things.
Yeah. Yeah, he sort of does what he thinks is right, but you can direct him. You can steer him. And
steer him into making your clocks go backwards?
Yeah, he's got a clock on his wall that runs backwards.
Oh.
That sort of sums Bob up. Yep. But he's a pretty decent guy, though. All in all, he just can irritate the hell out of you sometimes.
I don't know for sure, but did you have projects that were involved in the units that were made with all the powder blue front panels? I think it was called the Rose contract.
I was on the Rose. I was a project engineer on the Rose program. There were several project engineers. There was a tuner. I was in charge of there. For some reason, I was the tuner project engineer. It was I don't know, 89-51 tuner or something like that. But the Rose program was an interesting thing. Of course, some of the equipment did get delivered, but most of it just stayed and eventually got junked because of what happened when the Shaw got thrown out of power.
Yeah, Dave Shane told me he was required to inventory all of it for a lawsuit before the World Court.
Yeah.
And WJ received some settlement on the items, but he didn't know the details. So we
eventually did collect. We did get paid for the stuff. And by then it had no value, even as scrap surplus, because it had been too many years. You can't, electronics ages pretty fast.
Yeah, it does.
And the system was never finished. We had built the D-mods, we'd built the tuners, we'd built some of the controllers, but it had never been integrated together as the system that was supposed to go into the airplanes. And so you couldn't sell it to anybody else because it didn't. And who wants to buy a specially designed tuner that was for a special system that never was finished?
So that number you rattled off, what is it, 98-51 or something, that was unique to this project?
Yep.
Okay.
I forget what the other nomenclature was, but there were two Rose programs. There was an early one where they bought off-the-shelf hardware and put it in C-123s, big airplanes, and they actually flew those. It was they had RS-160 systems. And, I can't think of the other system we had. Four something. But I got
the ones with the 485 tuners, the RS-185.
Yeah, they stack up about 10 tuners in a rack.
Yeah, that's the RS-185.
All narrowband, single bandwidth tuners. All you could have different receivers with different bandwidths, but you couldn't switch bandwidths. Those did go into the C-123s, and they did fly because I got to ride on one once when we were packaging them up. But that was the preliminary Rose program. They wanted something immediately to put in the air, immediately meaning within a year or so. And then the other Rose program dragged out for several years until it fell apart. But we did collect after 10 years or so of fooling around.